Hi, today on Catherine Learns Stuff, I'm going to walk you through how to make these beautiful, simple lavender stalks. So let's jump in. To make our lavender stalks, all I'm using is some purple cardstock and some metal stems. You can use different shades of purple if you'd like, or you can even use different materials. I'm going to walk you through doing it with paper, but then I'm also going to show you some end results using different fabrics and stuff to make this as well. For the lavender stalks, what I do is I've bypassed using my Cricut on this one because I just didn't feel like having it cut a lot of paper for me. And I thought I could do this faster. But what I want to do is I want to measure out 1.5 inches on my paper cutter, and I'm going to cut this. And I'm going to cut a bunch of this in the dark purple and in the light purple so that I've got a few pieces to work with, and I'll show you how to make this work out really nicely. So now I've got a bunch of different pieces of paper. I'll need quite a few of these for this project to have a lot of lavender sheets. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, on each of these pages, I'm going to score a line right down the center so that I've got an easy way to fold this. It doesn't need to be perfectly in the center. It's just so that it makes it a little bit easier. It doesn't have to be perfect though. I don't like scoring with my Cricut because I find that the pen after a while jumps out and then I have to do it by hand anyways. If you don't want to score it, you could just cut these to a smaller size and do it like that instead, and that's fine as well. I just don't feel like cutting many times, but it makes no difference scoring or cutting. So now that I've got these all scored, I'm quickly going to just fold them. So I have a bunch of folded pieces. Now instead of folding them, I could just use regular pieces like this and have them loose on both sides, but I find that this has a nicer little edge to it when it's folded instead of being cut. So now that I've got all these folded, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my scissors and I'm going to cut some slices into this. Don't want them to be too far, but I want to have a little bit of space left here, and I'm just going to cut them. They don't need to be the same width or length for each of them, just some random lengths, and I'm going to do this for all of my pieces. Sometimes you might find that your score line didn't get scored right in the center and you're going to have an offset like that. That's okay. Just make sure when you're cutting it, you're cutting with the shorter side facing forward so you know how far to cut to get through the top shorter layer of paper as well. Okay, so after having spent like 10 minutes cutting all these out, I'm going to go back to my computer later and make a file for this because my finger is like red here from using my scissors so much, and I've nicely cut through a bunch of these all the way through instead of having them all the way as one long piece. So these pieces are salvageable. I'm going to use these purple bits inside the dark purple bits, and the same thing with this one here that's broken, so that I'm able to use them so they don't need to be thrown out. It's time to start making our flowers. So we have a few options here. Something that we can do is we can do just dark purple and just light purple. We can do light purple sort of tucked inside of dark purple. Let me just get this like this, if I can do this. Have it like sort of the two tucked into each other, or we can have them tucked in the opposite way, and it's just going to give us a different color. I'm going to do all four combinations. I'm going to do light purple, dark purple, and the combination of dark purple on the outside and then light purple on the outside so that we can see what they look like. But it just gives us a different kind of look on each flower, even though it's the same sort of design. So for the ones where I'm going to have two colors, with the dark purple and the light purple, I'm just going to do a light bead of glue on the inside here, especially with these broken ones so that they stay in place. But I don't really need to use too much glue. You can use like some of this double-sided rolling tape, something like this, where it's like a tape roll and you pull on it. I find that after a while that tape lets loose and we don't like to lose bits, so I'm not going to use that. Just going to glue this guy in here all the way and close this up. I'm going to do the same thing with my other purple one so that doesn't get wasted. Alright. And then we're going to do a dark purple and a light purple. So now with this, I'm going to start off with just a simple one piece. And I'm going to apply some glue, just a dab of glue along the edge here on the back of this. Now again, if you want to, you can use this kind of double-sided tape. I'll just show you on the scrap here. It just comes off. You can just, but I find that it doesn't always hold for very long. So you can use it like kind of like that and it'll hold. It's a double-sided sticky tape and it works for starting it out. At the end, we're going to need to use the big guns and pull out our hot glue to make sure it all stays shut. But I've got lots of glue. I don't have a lot of tape, so we're going to use glue instead. And now I want this to go onto an angle on my flower stem. So I'm going to roll this around. Now it's nice to have two layers of this because then you can see it started to kind of overlap on itself and there's more bits here. I'm just going to keep rolling this. And while this is rolling, I'm heating my glue gun because this last bit will need to get glued on extra strong because it will let loose if we don't. Or at least that's what I've found in the past. Just put a little dab of hot glue there at the end and let it dry. With the thin sticks for the stem, it's hard for this, just my regular crafting glue to hold this in place. So I'm just gonna let that dry out. And I'm gonna do the same for my other ones. When I'm doing the two colored paper, since the paper is a lot thicker, I find that the original glue doesn't stick very well at the beginning spot. So even though I'm going to run a bead of glue along the edge to help the whole thing to stay together, I'm actually going to put one bead of hot glue right here at the end before I start, so that I've got a good starting point so that it stays in position while I'm rolling it, but also so that it stays in position after we're done making the flower. I'm just gonna put a dab of hot glue here on top. Oops, maybe a little bit too much. And we're gonna start to roll this baby. Now, finally double glue here. To hold this all in place. Something to note though, when you're doing this, I've got these folded over because I didn't feel like cutting it more, but when you're rolling this out more, it's going to start to bend the paper here and it's can get a little bit funny and hard to roll. So just be aware of that. And sometimes when you're rolling, I'm using a really thin flower stem for these flowers this time. And sometimes when you're rolling it on these thin ones, it will rip the paper. So just be mindful of that when you're doing this. It's not the end of the world if it happens or not. It's just something to keep in mind. So when you're making them, you can have some ripping like you do right here, or you can have just some weird folds on it. But that's nothing to be concerned about because when this is all done, and there's a bunch of them, they're going to look nice together. So it's not going to be visible as an issue. Another way that we can do this is that we can just use one piece of paper so it's not folded and it's just cut, and have one color or two colors with it together. Even have them offset a little bit, and then they don't need to be glued together or anything. They can just have a little dab of glue put on the end here so that it sticks to our stem. When we're doing individual pages, they don't tend to slip and rip as much. And they kind of twirl better, but not always. So you'll notice when it's not folded over, it has a nicer twirl to it. But you'll notice here we don't want to do it so that the end pops out from underneath, so that it's not really showing. So when we're doing it this way, it's easier for that to pop out. So I have a bunch of these now. So what I need to do is just kind of play with all the pieces and loosen up these cut ends so that they have a little bit more texture and body to them. So don't worry, like if you've got a little bit of the stem showing, that's totally okay. We just want to kind of move this and make it a little bit more lifelike. So you've got more lifelike, and then like even this one here, see how small it is after I've rolled it. So we want to just move the pieces around. So now it's got a little bit more life, and we're going to do that to the rest of them as well. Now we've got a whole bunch of lavender stalks. So you can see here we've got some the multicolored ones, the two colored ones kind of have a nice effect to them, but just the simple dark purple or light purple work really nicely. Also, one thing I want to show you is I did this before, and this is actually just using foam paper. So I've got a bunch of different colored foam papers, and so you can actually do it with foam paper as well, and it automatically kind of pops out a little bit more. And what I did with this one is I used 2 sheets of foam paper and just cut them out. So you've got sort of an option, right? You can use foam paper, and you can also use different colors. You don't need to use just purples, because the lavender is purple, but vanilla has a similar look to this, and you can just make up your own flowers as well. And there you have it. Your paper lavender is complete. All I did was put them into a nice simple vase, and they're ready for display. I listed all the products that I've used in the description below, as well as a link to my website where you can get access to my other projects. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.